Hello, welcome back to the final episodes of EMI Professional Development Series by NTU. I'm Dr. Gina Wen-Chun Chen from National Chung Cheng University. In this series, we started from introducing Formulaic language in EMI classrooms to the idea of designing micro-learning lessons for instructional alternative. As the final episode of this series, I will recap the basics of micro-learning lesson planning and wrap it up with the second half of the instructional design, reinforce and recall. EMI discourse is also known as CALPS, Cognitive Academic Language Proficiency. The language proficiency and instructional discourse on the top of disciplinary knowledge may overwhelm novice EMI practitioners. Also during EMI, we need to sustain students' attention and make the best use of the limited attention span of these digital natives. So the last thing we want to do is to overestimate students' concentration duration and design long lectures. The lengthy sessions and monologue will do nobody any good. Since EMI is neither translated session nor simplified content, reassessing and fine-tuning our teaching style and routines will be strongly advised. To plan on your EMI lessons, we first decide on the scope and the content for the session, how we can organize and provide scaffold and so on. Then based on the plan, we create info display and visuals. Noted that EMI calls for more effective use of teaching strategies as well as means to facilitate students' engagement during EMI. Finally, we practice to use Formulaic language to signpost the teaching strategies and learning tasks with the goal to boost up the clarity and flow during the process. In the previous episode, we suggested 5 phases moving students from recalling background knowledge or prerequisite knowledge from prior lessons and connecting the old to the new topics with friendly introduction, then to expand on the fundamental concept or definition with sufficient examples. In this episode, we'll continue to demonstrate how we proceed with the rest of the micro-learning lesson planning, from expanding to reinforcing, and finally wrap up with the lesson with a quick summary. This way, the whole semester is built from many micro lessons rather than long lectures. Last time, we also showed you how Formulaic language can signpost our teaching strategies to make our instructional language to be simple, concise, to the point, and finally reach high clarity for our students. In the previous episode, we also briefly gave you some ideas regarding how we can expand from the introduction of the new topic or lesson. In this episode, more demonstration footage will be prepared for you to visualize how it can be done. The expanding stage aims to create more depth based on the core concept we introduced in the previous 2 phases. You can quickly guide your students to apply the new knowledge to a greater extent. Now let's see how this is done through a case study I offer students as an example of branding. So to give you more examples, we take a look at Starbucks, and we can take a look at how they reinvent themselves with their logos, right? Even though branding is more than just logos, but by changing their logos, they're also advocating different beliefs, right, to their customers. We can take a look at way back in 1971, right? The Starbucks, this is the original look of the Starbucks logo, right? It's actually just a pattern that people randomly found in the encyclopedia. And then they put it there, and then it was actually a tea and spice company, right? They didn't think too much of it. But the location of it is actually in Seattle, in terms of the original location for the company, right? And then later, we can start to see a little bit prototype of the modern Starbucks logo that was invented in 1987. And then 2011, they finally came up with the ones that we still look at and we still recognize, right, nowadays. So it's been 10 years that Starbucks has been using this logo. And this is what they posted on their formal website, and that is actually advocating their principles, right? So can anybody read this out loud so then we can, yes please, Evelyn.
The siren is a lot more than coffee. Good to people, good to the world.
All right, so how do you interpret this message they're trying to give to the whole world?
They try to do something for the society to do their social responsibility.
I love that. So people hear about that. Companies' social responsibility, shortened as CSR. Right, we looked at this, we can see this a lot on a lot of companies' website. They're telling people, well, making profit is important, but we also want to give back to the society, help the community, right? So Starbucks also emphasize on this. So we can hear much Formulaic language used when I was presenting the case of Starbucks to illustrate how branding is accomplished by the company. Expressions I use such as, just to give you more examples, we take a look at Starbucks something something, and I also use, we can take a look at how they accomplish or how they achieve something something. These are discourse organizers. 我用来连接上下文或者前后重点. I also use something like, something something was invented in year 2005. This is a referential expression. 把举例的主题或时间把它界定出来. I also use, I didn't think too much of it. Or I say something, I praise students with the phrase, I love that. These are the stance expressions, 表示我个人的态度. And the typical facilitative phrases for classroom language, I said, can someone read this out loud so we can da 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 da. So how do you interpret this message? I use this to elicit responses from students. So this is like the typical classroom language. So after the phase of expanding, we're moving on to reinforcing phase, where we can either reiterate the core concept, that would be convergence. 第一个选项就是把它收敛，我们可以收敛重述重点概念。This is convergence. Or supply further explanations or other related cases to illustrate the validity of the core concept, yet from a different angle or in a different way. The latter path would be for divergence. 那第二个选项就是比较发散的方式，用其他更广更深的角度或者是案例去发挥当天要介绍的这个理论或者是原理。So this way we push students to apply the new topic or concept further with a discussion session to help them contextualize the knowledge with personal experience or analysis. In the phase of reinforcing, we can certainly offer a case study or invite students to elucidate the ambiguous or complex ideas and achieve a more comprehensive definition to reflect the essence of the lesson. And one more example can be found here once you scan the QR code to listen to how this psychology instructor helped students move from the basic partitions of our brain by their names to more details of how different parts of the brain work together. In other words, he attempts to reinforce the basic brain functions and coordination mechanism. So since the instructor was trying to reiterate the core concept, the phrasing expressions are mostly discourse organizers. So they can allow him to connect what was said to what to be said. So here's, he used like, let me say that again, or the expressions such as, what we're saying now is something, something. He also used to put something simply, or just to make it clear for you. And he also paraphrased with the phrase saying, in other words. Now let's take a look at one more footage on how reinforcement is done in the classroom discussion I did on the topic of branding. Students were guided to apply the basic definition of branding and relate it to their personal understanding and lifestyle. So Now we see a lot of advertisements of all different kinds of medias, right? So especially on social medias, you see all kinds of daily commodities being advertised all the time. You guys are the target customers, right? For example, something that we eat very often, right? Some of the commodities like gan mian, dry noodles, right? What would be your preferences, or what would be your decision-making process, for example?
I choose those noodles based on flavor.
Flavor.
For example, my favorite noodle is the liquor series from Taiwan liquor company, Taiwan 烟酒.
Oh.
That they release some series like 花雕鸡 or something. They put liquors in that noodle, so that attracts me a lot. Yeah.
Right, so it actually has special features,
Yeah.
and basically that kind of liquor company, right, they features their own liquors as part of the ingredients, right? Good. So now we know branding is also part of the market strategy for a company, right? So if you put yourself in the shoes of the company and company's marketing team, how would you go about it when you're putting the advertisements or any kinds of marketing strategy? How do you go about it?
I think in my imagination, I would like to have my customers to have a strong connections with my company. Things that if there are new brands or company pop up in the marketing, they'll just stick to their original company and products. Yeah. So I think we should just make them trust us more.
Okay, so you want to develop some kind of trust for your customers, right? Trust is very important, especially for customer loyalty or brand loyalty, right? So based on your personal experience, what would be your expectations, or what would be the images, or what would be any kinds of desired qualities you want to see from a certain brand, for example?
Good looking.
Good looking.
Yeah.
Very good. What else?
I would prefer a brand with a positive image, or a brand that conveys a positive lifestyle. For instance, Nike. Nike's slogan is "Just do it," and it makes me feel that I can achieve the goal I want to achieve.
Right. It motivates you. It speaks for you. Right. So that also makes a lot of sense. There are several choices of reinforcement tasks we can choose from. Review tasks, quickly quiz them or orally ask them questions to see how much they remember or understand. A discussion roundtable like what I just demonstrated in the footage, or at a grander scale, you can ask students to do a presentation project or written report. But do keep in mind that a handout or worksheet will be needed to guide them and remind them, preferably with the requirements and grading rubrics included, to prevent any kind of further dispute or confusions afterwards. Here's the other example how we can design a reinforcement task by having students present the project. When I was announcing this assignment on this slide, I specified to the students that they will have to find one famous corporate and locate their branding manuals or any kind of supplementary materials from either the official website or peripheral site. Then students will have to post the companies they're researching on the Facebook group page we had shared by the class by a certain deadline. Then students will research and present how the company projects their historical evolutions and principles through their branding, telling the society what they believe. And then students will have to give group appraisals about if the branding approach works. Finally, I told the students how great their project presentation, including language 30%, and then content 30%, organization of the presentation and the material 30%, and finally visuals 10%. And then the following is one more example how we can put together a handout for a written report. In this example, we can see A writing prompt starts on the top of the handouts, followed by all kinds of requirements specified. Guided questions or problems are stated, and I also wrap up with the reminders and rating rubrics. So as we can see that I explain the scope and the direction, give them some inspiration, and then expanding the scope by including more similar examples. And also here you can see all the requirements are specified in detail in order to prevent any kind of confusions, and students will have like a guideline to follow. After the reinforcing stage, we now come to the recall phase, which is the wrap up for an EMI micro lesson. In this stage, we can reiterate, remind students what we have covered so far, call to action to urge students to explore more on the topic, offer our personal opinions on the topic of the day, and of course, prepare students for the assignments and give them a heads up for the next week. In this example, after you scan the QR code, Professor Bloom from Yale University will wrap up the course session by starting with the expression, a final point on this. This refers to the topic of the day. You'll hear how he gave personal comments on the theories he introduced for the day and how he prepares students for the next week. Now we have introduced how we can plan for your EMI, supported it with info display and visuals, and most importantly, to rehearse your teaching for clarity, flow, and strategy implementation. Most importantly, you're urged to take advantage of micro-learning concept to facilitate your teaching and students' learning. Hopefully, the 5 stages of lesson planning from recap, connect, expand, reinforce, and to recall can help you succeed in your EMI classroom. Good luck, and once again, thanks for watching.